Well, as you can see, this is a real mess, and it's not a good mess. The fact of the matter is that the Senate has been the most deliberative body in the world because we protect the rights of the minority. And it was just a few years ago that the majority leader was arguing for those rights himself, saying the Senate would be destroyed if we went to a nuclear option, which nobody did. It has never been done before, and frankly, shouldn't be done now. The fact of the matter is that they're playing parliamentary tricks with regard to this, and they're doing it to the detriment of the United States Senate, to the detriment of the minority. I've been in both the majority and the minority a number of times, and I have to tell you, I'd fight to my death for the rights of the minority, because that's one way that the United States Senate is the most important legislative body in the world. Right now, if we go the route that the majority leader and the Democrats are going, it's going to be a very destructive thing. Now, they'll say, well, they're limiting it just to certain executive branch people. Once you start down that road and open what Senator Reid has characterized as the Pandora's box, then there's no end to what one side or the other can do. And they have to be very careful, because a lot of the things that they hold very dear could go by the wayside if the majority was to change. The protection of the rights of the minority, that's one of the things that has made the United States Senate the greatest deliberative body in the world, in spite of what happened lately. The fact of the matter is, they bring up a bill, they file cloture immediately, even though they know that nobody's filibustering, accuse us of filibustering, and all of them go through without any filibuster or any real problem. And in the process, count what really aren't filibusters. Frankly, they want to get two people on the National Labor Relations Board who were improperly appointed and who shouldn't be on that board. I would suggest that all the president has to do is appoint two others who have the same philosophy, and they would get through the Senate. But because the rules were broken, the procedural rules were broken, the Republicans had no choice but to stand up and say, that's not right. And there are ways you can do this. And if you look at the record over the last number of years of this administration's appointment process, he's been treated much better than his predecessors. They've backed off on the judges because they know darn well that the judges have been treated very, very fairly, and so have most of the others. We have yet ever to filibuster and stop an executive nominee. And we didn't have any until the Democrats filibustered, I think, 4 or 5 judicial nominees. So this is a serious issue. And I hope my colleagues wake up on the other side, because this is not going to be fun for them someday.
In regard to the filibuster, what's the big deal? We've approved 199 judges, disapproved 2. So what's the big deal? We have 3 judges on the calendar that can be brought up any time. That's not much. And they can be brought up any time. So what's the big deal on a filibuster? We got 82 vacancies in the courts. 53 nominees aren't up here from the White House. So the big deal about not approving filling these vacancies is obviously something's wrong down at the White House, that they aren't sending up the nominees.
This isn't about a change of rules. It's about changing the Senate, changing its character. Most of the founders of our country did not want a king, so they created a Congress to check an imperial presidency. And the best known power of the United States Senate is probably the power of advice and consent in Article 2. It means that the president, who is not a king, has to be checked in his nomination of about 1,000 of the major appointees of government. Senator McConnell said this morning, advise and consent doesn't mean sit down and shut up. It usually means ask a lot of questions. The Democrats asked so many questions to Attorney General Ed Meese when President Reagan nominated him to be Attorney General. It took a year for him to be confirmed. asked so many questions of me when I was nominated to be Education Secretary for President Bush. It took 87 days. I didn't necessarily like it, but that was the right of the Senate. What's at stake here is not just a change of the rule. It's the way the rule is being changed. What it means is that with 51 votes, any majority can do anything it wants on any day in the United States Senate. It can change abortion rights. It can change civil rights. It can change environmental laws. It can change labor laws. Today, the House can do that. And when it comes to the Senate, we stop and think and consider it. But after this, whoever has the majority can do anything it wants on any day. That is a dangerous trend. It is what Washington and Jefferson and Adams feared. It's what de Tocqueville said was one of the two greatest dangers he saw to our democracy, the tyranny of the majority. Changing the character of the Senate is encouraging the tyranny of the majority, if anyone has a deep understanding of American history. And finally, this claim that somehow Republicans are delaying. The number of cabinet members whose seats have been denied by filibusters is 0. The number of district judges who have not gotten their seats by filibuster is 0. The number of sub-cabinet members is 0. The number of judges, circuit judges, is 2, because the Democrats denied 5 of the Republican judges under President Bush. As far as delay, the Washington Post and Congressional Research Service say that President Bush's nominees are being considered, President Obama's nominees are being considered more rapidly than President Bush's and President Clinton's. And as far as nominees, this is called the executive calendar. There are just 24 names on it. They all come out of Democratic committees. That's the only way they can get here. The only way they can get to the floor if Senator Reid brings them up. He could bring them all up tomorrow. And the one that's been on there the longest came February 26, 2013. That's just 4 months ago. So I challenge the news media to look into these questions about delay. If there's 0 seats lost by filibuster, if President Obama's nominees are moving through as fast as the last 3 presidents, then what's behind this attempt to change the character of the Senate and deny Americans who are in the minority their rights?
Democrats here in Washington want to run roughshod over the minority. And we've seen that. We've seen the president doesn't like dealing with the minority party here in Washington. Whether it's the IRS or the EPA or the CFPB, he's got a lot of agencies that are trying to usurp the powers, the separation of powers, things that are traditionally conferred on the legislative branch of the government, and trying to essentially legislate by executive order. We've seen that over and over and over again. That's been the pattern. And what the majority Democrats are talking about doing here in the United States Senate is essentially running over the rights of the minority. And Senator Alexander said it absolutely right. If you look at there is no basis or foundation on which to change. Make no mistake about it. They're talking about executive nominations today, but if you do this, it blows the door wide open. They will have established a precedent, and it will only be a matter of time before they want to use that for judicial nominations and for legislation as well.
Senator, you mentioned the 2 NLRB nominees that are being contested. The issue that I've heard Republicans say is that they are unconstitutional because they were appointed during what was not a recess.
That's right.
But if you confirm them now, then they would be constitutional. So I guess I don't understand the argument there. Wouldn't that address your concerns? It gets around the court opinion.
Well, once they disobey the rules and go around the rules, it seems to me you don't put the people that have gone around the rules into power positions, because they're people who really will not abide by the rules. And like I suggested, if they wanted to pick 2 others who may be of the same philosophy, they'd probably get through. But we don't countenance that type of thinking. And frankly, I don't know anybody who would.
That's an excellent question. Here's what happened. The president sent these 2 names to the Senate in mid-December of 2011 in the regular order, and before their papers even got to the appropriate committee, he used his recess appointment power to appoint them at a time when the Senate was in session. So the court said that's unconstitutional. Now, that is a gross affront to the checks and balances and separation of powers that are in the Constitution to restrain an imperial president. And so we have to think about what can we appropriately do about it? One thing we did was to appeal to the court, and the court agreed with us. A second thing we can do is to say to those two individuals who continued to make decisions after the court said they were unconstitutionally there, that we're not going to confirm them. They should have stepped down, which is what we called on them to do. They have participated in deciding 1,031 decisions, all of which are subject to being vacated and causing great consternation. So this is our appropriate response within the law, within the rules, and within the precedents of the Senate, and within the Constitution, to an unconstitutional act by the President of the United States, who appointed two people to the National Labor Relations Board using his recess appointment power when the Senate wasn't in recess.
You were quoting Senator Reid from 2009 saying that this would ruin the Senate. He and his Democratic colleagues were just here saying that the Senate is effectively already ruined because there's very little getting done. And so does he have a point to that? And also, Senator Thune, to the idea that cooler heads prevailed back in 2005. Could that happen again? I mean, could you show him the goodwill just to say, you know, maybe we'll let a couple of nominees get 51 vote thresholds and let's...
Well, the main reason the Senate is not doing as well as it should is because of the way the majority is running it, which is an argument which we'll take across the country and say, let's have a different majority in the Senate. We know how to make it work. I mean, I think it's dysfunctional leadership of the Senate, not a dysfunctional Senate. The second thing is, we could be working on student loans this weekend. That's what I've been working on in a bipartisan way all week. We're near an agreement. Last week I was working in a bipartisan way to vote for an immigration bill. Before that it was a water resources bill. Before that it was the Marketplace Fairness Act. So we're getting a lot done when the majority leader will lead the Senate in a way that lets us do it. So this place could function very well and very easily and has been accomplishing some things. And I think what their admission is they failed. They can't run the Senate. We need a new majority, and that's what we're going to be arguing for.
I mean, Lamar gave you several examples of things that are getting done here, but if you look at immigration, you look at the Farm Bill, the Internet or Main Street Fairness Act, there's a whole bunch of legislation that has moved, and they are working on an agreement on the student loan bill right now, and I think that ultimately will get moved through here, probably with bipartisan support. But again, I mean, I don't know how you can come out here to the microphones and with a straight face make an argument that things aren't working, particularly on executive nominations. I mean, there hasn't been a single cabinet-level nominee in this second term that hasn't been confirmed. And as I pointed out earlier, confirmed by overwhelming majorities. And the same thing is true with respect to judicial nominations. You cannot, the facts they just don't bear on what the Democrat argument is, and that to me is more than anything else. You can have an argument, everybody can have their own opinions about whether or not they like the rules of the Senate, whether or not the rules of the Senate ought to be changed, but you cannot argue the facts. The facts in this case are indisputable because they're all right here. And I think the same thing is true with regard to legislative activity in this session of Congress. There have been a number of major things that have been done, and done in many cases with bipartisan support. And as to whether or not cooler heads can prevail, absolutely, and I hope they do. But right now, we're not the ones that are, rushing to the floor to try and change the rules. I mean, we're trying to say, let's put the brakes on here. We'd be happy to sit down, and it's been suggested that we have a joint caucus meeting next week to talk about this issue. And if there are some things that we can work together on with regard to these nominees, Republicans are more than willing to do that. But at this point in time, clearly the Democrats are moving in a direction I think is very detrimental to the country and really jeopardizes the institution of the Senate.
Senator, what about Richard Cordray? Democrats say it's improper to hold up a nominee because you have a problem with the law that says they shouldn't mix the two.
Well, he has two problems. He was appointed in a recess appointment by the President when the Senate was not in recess. So he has that problem, just like the Labor Relations Board. I mean, think about this. Senator Reid himself invented something called the pro forma 3-day session. Most of you are veterans of this press corps. You know about that. He did that during President George W. Bush's time to keep President Bush from making recess appointments. President Bush didn't like it at all, but he respected the separation of powers. So during one of Senator Reid's pro forma sessions, President Obama made recess appointments when the Senate wasn't in recess. He appointed Mr. Cordray. He appointed 3 NLRB members. That's the unconstitutional imperial action of the president that demands a response from the Senate if checks and balance means anything.